So starting out, let's talk history. Let's talk background. Your grandfather bought the winery at first. Can you tell us everything about what you know about your grandfather and the winery and where it was?
Okay, so my grandfather actually he inherited the land from his mother, and actually my grandfather's name is Valentin Piñuaga Salazar. In Spain, everybody has two last names, so the first name, your first last name, goes from your father, and your second last name is the first last name of your mother. So, yeah. So the estate is called Dehesa de Salazar because he inherited from his mother, and in turn, it was coming from that side. So he kept the land. And he set up the winery. He didn't buy it. He set up the winery in the mid-60s.
Can you tell me about her and her family? Do you know?
My great-grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that time, in our region, it was people lived out of the agriculture, basically, and they were kind of big extensions of agriculture. It's not like in different other parts of Spain where they were like mini extensions. They were big extensions of land.
What does that mean in terms of acreage or hectares?
Well, it means minimum 500 hectares. Yeah.
Wow.
So
and that would be what your
my grandfather had 1,000 hectares, 500 in where we have the winery, and another 500 in the town where he was born. That he inherited that from his father.
Were they particularly wealthy, or was that normal?
Well,
it's a lot of land.
No, they were a bit wealthy. It's interesting because my grandfather, he studied law, but he never had to work as a lawyer because he had land. And then it's funny, it's like he also got a lottery prize in the, I think it was in the late, when Franco was still living, you know, he won like, I think it was like 14 million pesetas at that time, which was a lot of money. So, yeah, but he already had the land. But he had 13 children.
Wow.
So when my grandfather died and you had to divide the estate, because in Spain, again, it depends, it's not like in the UK where usually to keep the business in the family, there's one that inherits the whole thing, and usually it's the eldest male person in the family. In Spain, it's not that way. By law, you have to divide everything equally amongst all your children. So most of them had gone to university, studied different careers, and they ended up selling their piece of land because it didn't make too much sense to keep, 200 hectares of something if, you were not going to work the land. So, except my father. So he kept the land, and he kept the vineyards. And the winery that they had built ended up in the hands of one of my uncles, who, initially before they all, when my grandfather died, initially they kept everything together for some time and they used the winery and so on. But it got to a point where, my uncle said, I'm selling this because I don't want to take care of this. So they also sold the winery. And my father kept the vineyards for, at the same time that he had another job. And he was selling the grapes to other wineries. And then I came on board in year 2000, basically. When
So time out, go back if I can ask.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about, going back to your grandfather and the winery that he set up.
Mm-hmm.
He set that up as a young man, that was in 1960?
No, he wasn't a young man. I mean,
Yeah.
because he died in 1974, I think.
Yeah.
75. So he did that, and he died when he was 80 something. It was because it was more an initiative, I think, of my father at that time, along with two of his brothers. Mm-hmm. Because they, at that time it was very popular to you had your grapes and to have your own production, and also to sell the production to what at that time would in Madrid and in the bigger cities, they had these like bars called bodegas, and you could go there with your carafe and just refill. You didn't really know if it was a good or better wine. It was just wine that you would go and fill out. There was no brand. You knew where the wine was coming from, but there was no, it was not branded.
Was that only in Madrid?
No, no,
or
no. I
was
think it was all over Spain.
all over.
It was all over Spain. Yeah.
So your grandfather
Supplied.
would have just been taking grapes on one hand, just taking grapes to a winery in Madrid that would then process along with everything else?
No, no. They would be processed at the winery and then, like in bulk, sold to these kinds of bodegas.
Yeah.
You have to take into account that in Spain in the 1970s, the consumption per capita was approximately 50 liters per person. Or, no, between 50 to 70 liters per person per year. Right now we're in 17.
Yeah.
So.
So where was the facility that your grandfather sold?
In the town where we have the vineyard.
Yeah.
But in the town, not where because the winery today is in the vineyard. But the original operation was inside the town.
And
there's apartments there now.
I'm imagining, just because I know them, I'm imagining things in like Languedoc where you have little towns and there's wineries in the town and there's 5 or 6 of them on the street. That was kind of what it was?
Yes, my town, it's very interesting because all of the old houses in the town have underground caves and many of them have like little bodegas underneath.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but they're not used any longer for that purpose. It's interesting because what we're seeing right now is that there's like a younger generation who is kind of investing in, younger generation with money, who is investing in those old houses because they are big houses. And it's a lot of money to invest to redo everything. But so I've seen things lately that I had never seen before in these old houses that you can go underneath and see how the caves and the old wineries with big tinajas of clay where the wine was made, basically, for either just your consumption, local consumption, or consumption in Madrid, in the bigger cities.
So your grandfather had one of those houses. Did your great-grandmother live in one of those? Were they doing the same thing?
Yes, they had. But my great-grandmother was. They lived in another town close by. But yeah, it was very, very similar.
And what was your great-grandmother growing?
They were growing basically cereal. There was cereal, olive trees, and grapes and vineyards. A lot of cereal, though.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of grapes?
Mainly, there was white. At that time, it's either white or red. I don't think that they were that conscious about which kind of white or which kind of red, but it was mainly Tempranillo and Airén, which is the most planted white grape in the region. And they were all bush vines, that for sure.
And then in 1960, your grandfather gets the winery going. So he buys one of the facilities in Corral.
No, they actually built the facility.
Oh, they built it?
Yeah, because they had like this piece of, I don't want to say land, like in the town you have just a place and so they built it. It wasn't a very complicated operation. It was just, because it wasn't like for bottling or anything like that. It was more to make bulk wine.
Would they ever buy grapes, or they had enough?
No. They had enough of what they had.
Yeah.
Although sometimes what they did is that at that time it was also popular to make wine. There's this, in Spain you say amaquila, which basically is like you rent someone's operation and they do it for you. It's like a service. And so what they did sometimes is that if there were other, smaller growers or whatever that didn't have a place where to take their grapes, they might just take them there and put them, custom whatever, yeah.
And then, so they are processing their own grapes. They're selling in bulk entirely. They're not bottling anything. And it's going out to bars wherever. No one knows whose wine is what or what it was.
They know it's from Toledo or Rioja or Ribera. I wouldn't say even Ribera. They would know Toledo or La Mancha, or they would know Rioja, or they would know the city, Valladolid or Peñafiel, or like the names of the places, but not the appellations, because I think that came much later.
Is it reasonable to think that those wine bars created a name for themselves based on quality? Like, would you have a buyer who was savvy that had good relationships in those places? And I'm not talking about like the bottle. I'm just saying like if I know that your grandfather is consistently producing a good product, then I have a good wine if I'm buying bulk. I'm sure that there was a lot of people that made really shitty oxidative wine that was just terrible, right? Do you know anything about those? Is that
I don't think that the quality at that time was that important, to be honest.
No.
No. And all those bodegas, they had like their own kind of, tanks. Sometimes they were oak barrels, and they would just put the wine there, and they would just open the, with a little tap.
Yeah.
It's like tap wine, basically.
Yeah.
Generic tap wine coming from the region, but with no name. So, and I remember going with my mom's father to some of those bodegas that they had underneath their house, their apartment in Madrid, and going to refill those carafes, because at that time people drank wine in a very different way. My mom's parents, they are from Ribera, they are from Peñafiel, where big famous Spanish wineries from Ribera are today, and I would go with him, and they would drink wine every day, but it's they wouldn't drink it alone. They would drink it, blended with this white sparkling water that we have, sparkling water that we have in Spain called casera. So you would drink red wine with casera, but on a daily basis.
Probably really yummy.
Yeah, it's like soda water. It's not sweet. It's completely, and they would drink it for lunch and dinner. My grandmother, my grandfather, a lot of people. But that has completely disappeared in Spain. People don't drink that way any longer, except for the summer, where we drink tinto de verano, which is what we call our summer tinto. So if you have like leftover red wine at home, or a nice, easy drinking red, in the summer it's really hot, so you put a glass of red wine with that kind of soda water and some ice on it, and that's it. And we do drink that way in the summer.
So there's your sales pitch for the BTG feature of the Tinto de Verano.
It's too bad, because there's a lot of bad. There's the big corporations that have designed, already made the Tinto de Verano, on not glass bottles, but usually on a plastic, like a Coca-Cola bottle, and it's just made of powder, and it's horrible. But we do drink a lot of Tinto de Verano in Spain, and I think that is something that we still have not been able to export as a concept. And for me, it's a super interesting concept for the younger generations, and especially when it's warm.
Yeah, and it's worth putting in, and it's worth just putting in and saying it, like, that's an incredible pour cost. It's a story that is a very real story about culturally something that exists. It addresses the NA, or the low alcohol question.
Definitely.
And it extends your cost. So you charge somebody, you talk about, and you think about a place like Apero, where you say, hey, like, you're pouring stuff all year long. Like, you can legitimately sell this, and you knock $2 off instead of making it half price. And you have good content. So, one moment.